In the world of breakfast staples, few names echo through American kitchens like Aunt Jemima. Yet beneath that familiar facade lies a story that is intertwined with America's racist past, from minstrel shows to modern grocery store aisles. Aunt Jemima's image has carried more than just pancake mix. It has carried the weight of cultural stereotypes, and it's an emblem of comfort food and a stark reminder of America's uncomfortable history. So join us today while we uncover the story of Aunt Jemima. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com. Also, if you like audio-only episodes, you can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. But without further ado, let's get started. In 1888, Chris Rutt and Charles Haywood acquired a small flour mill in St. Joseph's, Missouri, establishing the Pearl Milling Company. Essentially, they were producing meal products like wheat flour and cornmeal, but they faced a saturated market. In 1889, they innovated by selling their excess as self-rising pancake batter, and this marked the creation of the first ready-mix product. Rutt would adopt the Aunt Jemima image from a vaudeville poster and put that brand on their pancake mix. Despite the effort, they lacked capital, and in 1890, they were sold to the R.T. Davis Milling Company. R.T. Davis improvised the mix by adding rice, flour, corn, sugar, and powdered milk, making it simpler and easier to prepare, only requiring water. This success eventually led to the company being renamed Aunt Jemima Mills. Aunt Jemima was modeled after the mammy stereotype. The mammy archetype is a pervasive stereotype that depicts Black women as cheerful, subservient domestic workers devoted to their white families. It emerged during the Jim Crow era and perpetuated this romanticized view of plantation life with the happy slave narrative, despite the harsh realities of enslavement. In the brand's naming, terms like aunt and uncle were used to address older individuals and intentionally denied them proper English titles like Mr. or Mrs., implying their inferiority. Early advertising heavily leaned into this archetype, often using slogans like eyes in honey to represent Aunt Jemima as a loyal cook on fictitious plantation. These advertisements romanticized plantation life with fictitious stories and reinforced this idealized domesticity. The initial logo marketed materials drew on caricatures from vaudeville parodies, and over time, even as the image evolved, Aunt Jemima predominantly shown in this servant role and is rarely acknowledged as having her own personal life beyond servitude. Alongside brands like Uncle Ben's and Creamer Wheat's Rastas, Aunt Jemima contributed to this post-Reconstruction fantasy that sought to redeem this idealized version of the antebellum South. The name Aunt Jemima even entered the lexicon as a derogatory term for Black women who was perceived overly subservient or aligned with white interests, very akin to Uncle Tom. The first actress to play Aunt Jemima was a woman by the name of Nancy Green. She was born into slavery in Montgomery County, Kentucky. Nancy Green would later move to Chicago after the Civil War. At 59, she was chosen as the first spokesperson for Aunt Jemima's pancake mix, and her lively personality and cooking prowess made her an ideal candidate to embody the brand. Her debut was at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, where she mesmerized audiences with her pancake cooking demonstrations, stories, and songs. She effectively embodied the romanticized version of the Old South, and her success at the exposition was undeniable, earning her the title of Pancake Queen, and she even received a medal after selling a legendary 50,000 boxes. During her time, Aunt Jemima became one of the first Black corporate models in the United States, and while her portrayal of a character was rooted in a mammy stereotype, she was a remarkable individual in her own right and engaged in a lot of philanthropy. This engagement as Aunt Jemima afforded her a lot of social and economic opportunities that were largely unavailable to Black women of that era. So Aunt Jemima, the brand, under the leadership of R.T. Davis, the brand would create this semi-fictional backstory for Nancy Green and the Aunt Jemima brand. She was depicted as this legendary cook with a secret recipe and an image that resonated with romanticized notions of Southern life and solidified the brand's appeal. Nancy Green would live into the age of 89 when she would tragically pass away in 1923 in a car accident. But the legacy of Aunt Jemima would continue with the Pearl Milling Company, which employed other actresses to embody the character that she had initially established. Continuing this tradition, Actress Moody performed the role in the 1900 Paris Exposition. In 1925, Lillian Richard portrayed Aunt Jemima for 23 years, followed by Anne Robinson at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, who helped redesign the packaging with her likeness. Rosa Washington Riles and Anna Short Harrington also took up the role in 1948 and 1954, respectively. Edith Wilson continued the portrayal, becoming the first to appear in a radio and television commercial in 1948 through 1966, and Ethel Ernstine Harper took over the likeness during the 50s, and she was the last individual model for the logo. Rose Lee Moore Harper, also known as the last living Aunt Jemima, also held the role until her death in 1967, and Anne Lee Lewis performed at Disneyland at Aunt Jemima's Pancake House from 1957 until her passing in 1964. These women were instrumental in transforming Aunt Jemima from a trademark into a real persona, which was essential to the brand's identity and its widespread appeal. The marketing strategies employed fictitious stories, promotional material, and paper dolls, extending the brand's reach across the United States and even into Canada, while perpetuating this mammy stereotype and its association with Southern hospitality and servitude. Despite the commercial success, Aunt Jemima faced criticisms for its perpetuation of racial stereotypes, including this mammy archetype. Early critics decried it as a harmful post-Reconstruction fantasy. These criticisms only intensified with the Civil Rights Movement, with figures like Elvis Cleaver condemning its racial connotation. Cleaver, who viewed Aunt Jemima as a symbol of racial servitude and equated the name as the female version of Uncle Tom, and consumers would then indicate their discomfort with its association with slavery. In response to these concerns, changes were implemented over time. In 1968, the brand slimmed down its image, and in 1989, it removed the covering from her head, symbolizing its shift away from its racially charged origins. Despite these efforts, the character continued to invoke controversy, illustrating a complex legacy of its initial portrayal. In recent years, societal attitudes towards racial representation have promoted brands to reassess their imagery and messaging, particularly in the light of the growing awareness of racial equality and justice. Consumers and activists have increasingly demanded companies address their racial stereotypes, laying the groundwork for significant transformations in branding, including revisiting the image of Aunt Jemima. Originally, Aunt Jemima's imagery was embedded into cultural stereotypes, setting a precedent for advertising to utilize these racial stereotypes to appeal to consumers. But over decades, efforts have been made to modernize her brand. And in June of 2020, amidst the heightened unrest in the United States, Quaker Oats, the brand owner of Aunt Jemima, acknowledged the need for a change. Aunt Jemima brand was discontinued and her imagery removed at the end of 2020. By June of 2021, products were officially rebranded the Pearl Milling Company in honor of the brand's origins without its problematic associations. The tagline, "Same great taste as Aunt Jemima," was retained, although some descendants of the former Aunt Jemima actresses have expressed some resistance, feeling like the change of races are part of their family history. Aunt Jemima's brand underscores advertising's profound impact in societal perceptions, with a critical need for brands to adapt contemporary values. It serves as a reminder of the power and responsibility and commercial entities have in shaping cultural consciousness, and illustrates the importance of aligning brands' values with those of a more equitable society. Thank you. This has been the story of Aunt Jemima. I'm your host, Country Boy. If you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com. If you like to support the channel, you can do so on my Buy Me Coffee Patreon page in the description below. I'd like to thank all my subscribers. Thank you. Without you, none of this could be possible. And peace.